Hello, YouTube. Sunday night, going through some stories, decided to record them. Let's start off with something positive. Let's talk about space exploration and becoming a two-planet species, setting off into not just the sunset, but ultimately the deep space horizon. SpaceX Starship splashdown confirmed, and Maxilla successfully catches super heavy booster. Now, I will tell you, when I first saw this, I did think that this was AI. I was not aware that this was going on. But of course, I was doom scrolling and I came across this. I'm going to pull it up on X so we can all watch it again together. Here we go. Yes.
We're now down to 3 Raptor engines. We can see those chopsticks now. Megadilla has caught the booster.
That's just wild.
This is absolutely insane. On the first ever attempt we have.
Their first ever attempt. That to me is really wild. Wow. If you've been following SpaceX since the beginning, really, you've seen the failure one after one after one after one, blowing up on takeoff, blowing up mid-flight, blowing up on landing. The fact that this man had to be self-funded to make this thing happen, and it's just, you can see the snowball effect of this company too. I mean, every week that goes by, the fact that, it's not fate, but the chances of being a two-planet species and thriving on other planets is getting closer and closer, and it's just gives me so much hope for the future, because the news really is just a lot of doom and gloom, and that's what sells and that's what get the clicks. But man, something like this, I don't care who you are, you're gonna be excited to see something like this. 23.6 million views, gave it a little heart. The memes down here are hilarious. I can't believe you didn't cry during the Titanic. Here's Yes Chad crying during this. I did feel a little bit that way. And here it is. So this thing catches it. I'm not sure exactly how it clasps onto it. But I guess what it does, then it lowers it down back into the holding harness to where it can go get refitted. Here's a funny one with Elon Musk's jump that he had over there at the Donald Trump campaign. You could see probably the most insane thing I've ever seen. I mean, look at the angle that it's coming in at. You think, oh, it's going to hit the bottom of this tower, but it just, it fixes itself right there at the very end too. Just absolutely incredible. The feat in engineering that goes into this, and it's getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. They're becoming better and better and better. His internet company is already up. The satellites are still being put up there. He's going to start using that funding to build more of these, to keep pushing out into space, to keep building more satellites, and more super heavy boosters, and ultimately getting us to another planet, which is awesome. I wonder what the land grab is going to be like on that. Is it going to be like the Sooners in the early 1800s, where they just went out and just marked off plots of land? Can't wait to see what that happens as well. Now, will we uncover anything cool on Mars? Possibly. Actually, really good chance we do, because it looks like there definitely was water for some amount of time on there. Another good positive thing, I think. Actually, I got mixed feelings on this one. Donald Trump says he's going to be doing the Joe Rogan podcast. During an interview on the Neil Boys Full Send podcast, Donald Trump says he plans to appear in the Joe Rogan Experience. The host, Kyle, said he would you consider going on the Joe Rogan podcast? Trump responded this week, oh, sure, I think I'm going to do it, actually. He later confirms, yeah, I am. So look, this has been floating around for a while. I've heard many people say that, oh, there's a big thing coming in, closer to the end of October. Donald Trump could be doing that one. I think that he needs to think very strategically about this. If all the polls are indicating that he has taken the momentum and Kamala Harris and their campaign has kind of stalled out and are actually starting to dwindle, if you're in late October going on the Joe Rogan podcast for an hour, maybe even 2 hours, and possibly getting sideways on some conversations that can negatively affect your polling, I don't know if that's the most strategic thing. Just strictly from a strategic political campaign standpoint, that's what I'm talking about. Now, I think the American people do deserve to have this long form podcast, this conversation with Donald Trump. However, I'll say this, he's gone on many podcasts already. He's sat down on many long form podcasts, open and honest conversations, really, really well thought out responses and questions. And he got pushed on several questions as well. Last week he was on Flagrant. The 2 or 3 weeks before that, he was on Theo Vaughn. He sat down with many people before us. A couple of them are escaping my mind right now, but they're fairly good interviews. What the interview would look like with Joe Rogan, I can't. I will say this: all the interviews with these people, their interviews with Donald Trump has looked different than their interviews have been with other people. So they're kind of, it's not a I don't think it's going to be a full-fledged Joe Rogan interview where, they're drinking or getting hot. Obviously, Donald Trump doesn't do either of those. But is Joe Rogan going to push back on questions 4, 5, 6 times deep? Maybe, maybe not. But I think that this could be good, especially Donald Trump should definitely go for it if he is trailing in the polls and if they don't feel that they have a decisive lead in the critical states that they need. At that point, full send, go for it. If not, maybe there's something to think about there. Now, speaking of in the key states, battleground states, registering people to vote. How is he polling? How are things going? From the Hill, Democratic voter registration raises red flag for Harris. Now, in this article from the Hill, Democratic voter registration advantage has dropped in 3 key battleground states, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Nevada, raising a red flag for Vice President Harris, as experts cites a lack of enthusiasm for the Biden administration's brand and the Democratic Party generally has problems. In Arizona, another key battleground state, Republicans have seen their voter registration advantage increase substantially, which could make it tougher for Harris to carry the state that President Biden narrowly won in 2020. And he very well did narrowly win it. NBC election map, of course, I look it up all the time. I like to refer back to see what we're really talking about here. Let's go to 2020. And he won it by 0.3, 10,000 votes. Oh my gosh. This state, this was another 0.3. This was 0.7. Pennsylvania turned out to be 1.2, 81,000 votes. 81,000 votes, yeah, there. So 0.3. Let's see what it still wouldn't have mattered there. No, 2020. Oh, you can't do that. Okay, whatever. I see. I get like wrapped up in playing with this map. Anywho, very, very small margin, 0.3 percentage points, less than 10,000 votes. So obviously that is a very important state for either candidate to pick up. I'm playing a little bit of defense more than offense there, picking that one up. Other presidential candidates, other presidential battleground states, including Georgia, Michigan, and Wisconsin, do not register voters by party, which is very interesting. The shift from voter registration away from the Democrats in Pennsylvania and North Carolina may explain why Harris campaign I'm sorry, this thing came up and it popped me off my where I was here. Pennsylvania may explain why the Harris campaign has tacked to the center on issues such as fracking and tax policy. This is what I want to talk about. The shift in voter registration away from Democrats and in Pennsylvania and North Carolina may explain why the Harris campaign has tacked to the center on issues such as fracking and tax policy. Right there, folks. I mean, that right there is the headline. That's the hidden lead right there. Okay, so what we really want to do isn't sitting well with voters in general. So now that we're in a campaign season, let's tack away from it. Tacking away means just lying. They're just lying about it. That's the truth of it. That does not get done what their base actually wants to do. That's also not reflective of all the people that they're going to hire in their administration, all the lawyers that they're going to have, all of the special interest groups that are going to be funding the policies that are going to be written up. This right here is the dead giveaway from the Hill, too. The shift in voter registration away from Democrats in Pennsylvania and North Carolina may explain why the Harris campaign has tacked to the center on issues such as fracking and tax policy. And we've seen it time and time again in interviews where she is asked, well, 3 or 4 years ago, you said this about fracking, or you said this about tax policy. And then she's like, well, let me make it very clear. We are a diverse country made up of many people. And sometimes those people have disagreements. Okay, not answering the question. And when she's finally pushed on about 3 or 4 times, and she can't get away from it, she finally comes out and says, hey, look, I have changed my position. My values haven't changed, but my position has changed in 3 years. And I will be the first to say anybody is allowed to change their position. Obviously, right? You can get more information. You can learn different. You can have different outlooks on things, different things may develop. For instance, fracking, maybe it's become safer, maybe it's become more efficient, maybe the landscape of solar and wind as it's played out isn't as advantageous as the projection models have shown. All these different things, she could go with all these different lines, but instead it's just, well, no, I don't believe that anymore. No, not really going into the details of why. But here's the details why, because she needs those votes. She needs to win the Electoral College. And to do that, she needs Pennsylvania. That's why she's tacked away from fracking. In Nevada, Democrats have seen their voters' registration advantage drop, though Harris, unlike those other states, maintains a clear lead over former President Trump. The polling averages, if you look at the changes from 2020 to 2024, Democrats are down about 300,000 voters and Republicans are up about 70. Non-affiliate independent voters are up about 83,000, 85,000 voters. And that is from the Center of Opinion Research at Franklin and Marshall College in Pennsylvania. So let's go back to this map where they won it by 81,000 votes. This is saying that they're down 300,000 voters and Republicans are up 70,000. It doesn't mean 70 over Democrats. Democrats still have the total edge, but down 300,000. That's huge. There's many things that we can go in. Their mail-in ballots, which were a huge turnout in 2020, they're down like 400,000 or something like that. Requests for mail-in ballots. Their early voting is down. I already said their mail-in ballots are down. Their registrations are down. Even their volunteers are down in Pennsylvania. So this is all starting to swell and look really good for the Republican Party if the ground game can do a big final push here in this last month. Remember, Democrats or Republicans, we are voting by mail. We are voting early. We're taking friends to the poll. We're not waiting till the day of election because we are going to be working on the day of election. That's who's going to be running the voting booths. This right here, he said the declining Democratic voter registration in some parts of Pennsylvania is driven by a disenchantment with the party in power in Washington. I don't think so. I don't think that it's just because of the party in power. I think that's a cope. I think that's a cope with the mismanagement of messaging in the Democratic Party. I think that's a big issue because how the Democratic Party has treated men over the past 10 years. and how they have race baited everyone into hating everybody else. And I think a lot of people are really done with it. Also the coup. Yeah, that was a big one that people really got turned off about. Host warns of declining Democratic voter registration is a challenge for Harris and swing counties in Erin, Northampton, and Bucks, and as small rural counties where she wants to keep Trump's margin of victory as small as possible. If 25% of Bucks County votes Republican this year, it's done in Pennsylvania. It's done. This goes on and on and on. Democrats had about a 666,000 person voter registration advantage over Republicans in Pennsylvania in 2020, which has shrunk to 354,000 person advantage. So it's almost halved by 300,000 just in registrations. Let's see what it's done in North Carolina. Has shrunk from almost 400,000 to just over 130,000. So the ground game, this is what I keep saying, the ground game for the Republican Party has been absolute dumpster fire for the past 20 years. And if Republicans would continue to build this base of a ground game and infrastructure and keep it in place through all the different election cycles, this country is going to look completely different electorally in the next coming decade, especially when the next census comes around and you require a social security number on every single census. You get voter ID, you clean up the voter rolls, which actually are being cleaned up fairly well, just to remove even the idea that there is something negative or wrong or illegal going on, just to remove that out of the conversation. Democrats should be happy that that's being handled. So that way we can get out of all the foo-foo that's just being around. He said Republican voters registration nationwide has increased 1.2 million people, while Democratic registration has dropped by 800,000 people since 2022. I wonder if that has to do with the massive purges. I would be very interested in knowing where they get that source. Now, like I said, Republicans were voting. We're just going to vote once. We're not going to vote often. Okay. We're not going to vote often. We're going to vote by mail. We're going to vote early. We're going to vote before Election Day because we're going to be working at the polls on Election Day. Trump spreads conspiracy theories on mail-in voting for years. Now his campaign is urging people to vote early and by mail. That's right, baby. You know why? Because Donald Trump has hired people and surrounded himself with people who are knowledgeable and want him to win, and he is listening. He is listening. And that's why I think the second Donald Trump comeback into Washington, D.C. is going to be so awesome. The first time he got in there, he thought that he's the CEO and everyone's going to do what he says, and he didn't realize what he was stepping into. And I don't think anyone really did. No one really understood what he was stepping into. And the swamp kind of fed on itself with attacking him. People got more and more emboldened. Well, now he knows what he's stepping into. He understands the election cycle. He understands the election policies and processes and what you have to do. Too big to rig, and that's what we're doing. So many months ago, the Republican Party came up with a ground game and said, hey, Donald Trump, this is the plan. We're going to use mail-in ballots. We're going to use mail-in voting, and we're going to vote early, and we're going to get a massive turnout before the election so we don't have problems like they did in the midterms with Arizona and Kari Lake and specific. I mean, if you look at the map, the majority places for Republican precincts had problems with their voting machines. Lines were long. People went home. And I believe that was a huge reason Kari Lake lost that election. Donald Trump's campaign is making a last-minute push to advocate for early and mail-in voting methods. The former president has falsely vilified for years as dangerous and fraudulent. Now, let me stop there. I think that it would be great if we just had a voting day. We have election day. But now we have election month and a half Okay, October 1st, people can start voting. It's like, dude, that's a while. That's a long amount of time to vote. But if that is the premise, if that's the rules that we're going to do, then we're going to fully embrace the rules and we're going to use them to the best of our ability. Donald Trump's campaign is making a last minute push with less than a month to go in a tight race. Trump's campaign is urging people to vote early and by mail while also working to expand voter access in North Carolina after Hurricane Helene. In a series of recent virtual town halls and robocalls reviewed by CNN, Trump and his daughter, daughter-in-law Laura Trump, the co-chair of the Republican National Committee, which, by the way, is doing a great job. They have a huge future in front of them, have actively encouraged voters to take advantage of early voting options, including mail-in ballots. All right, let's listen to one of these calls.
Hi, this is Laura Trump calling on behalf of President Trump's campaign, and we're urging you to get out and vote before Election Day. This is a tight race, and we need every single Trump supporter to get out and cast their vote. We must have massive turnout to make our victory too big to rig and overcome any and everything they throw at us. Go to swampthevoteusa.com to register to vote or make sure your registration is up to date. You can also request an absentee or mail-in ballot there or pledge to vote early, which lets us send you automated follow-up information on how to vote early. That's swampthevoteusa.com. Voting before Election Day is a huge help because every day each state tells us which voters have already voted, and it allows us to remove you from the list. It refocuses our remaining time, resources, and manpower on just turning out the voters who are left. The other side has more money, so we have to be efficient. Please help us win and help us run a more effective and efficient campaign by getting out and voting before Election Day. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
That's beautiful. That is awesome. That is the kind of things that we need. I don't know if they did that in 2020. Obviously, Laura Trump wasn't the co-chair of the RNC. In fact, the RNC at that time, I don't think was very effective. We've had an internal battle inside the Republican Party to move that into a more effective group. This is great. I know myself, my phone has been blowing up with Donald Trump text messages, and not just begging for money. It's things like, hey, go volunteer. Make sure you're registered to vote. Are you registered to vote? Deadline's coming. You can start early voting. This is when you can do early voting. This is when you can vote by mail. That is huge. That those things are just now happening out here in the matrix, pushing out to the people, hey, get out here and do something. At least 286,000 estimated robocalls with this recording were sent to voters, including in key swing states like Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada, Michigan, according to data from Numberano, an app that blocks and tracks robocalls. Okay, that's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. We got another recording, too big to rig, and I want to listen to this one. This is from Laura Trump encouraging Nevada voters to vote early and by mail in Nevada. Let's listen to this one.
Nevada Republican Party. Hey, it's Laura Trump here. I wanted to personally remind you that the election is quickly approaching. Nevada is absolutely crucial, and we need every patriot stepping up right now. In Nevada, you've got two great ways to vote early, in person or by mail. Early voting starts on October 16th for mail-in ballots and October 19th for early voting in person. Make sure your friends, family, and neighbors are registered and ready to go for this important election. Every single vote matters, and we need all hands on deck. With your help, we're going to secure a massive victory in Nevada. So get out there, encourage others to vote early, and remind them just how critical this election is. When we vote, we win. Thanks for all your hard work, and let's keep fighting for America. This call was paid for by the Nevada Republican Party. We can be reached at 702.
All right, Nevada Republican Party. Good job. Bravo, bravo, bravo. Keep it up. That is awesome. That is something that we need. Mail-in ballots were huge in 2020 in Nevada. You think about Las Vegas, you think about COVID shutdowns, and everyone that had left the state that was in the entertainment industry, all of the servers, the people running the kitchens, the dealers, people working the floor. Vegas was shut down for an extended period of time. They had all left the state. So the only way for them to vote was to do mail-in ballots. And now that was a huge push from the Republican campaign. It's like, hey, these people don't even live there currently. They're voting in a state that they can't live in now. There is a little bit, I don't personally agree that we should have been fighting to not let them vote, which technically that wasn't the legal case. But the legal case was, where are they currently registered to vote at? And then are they duly registered to vote in other states? We're also pushing for North Carolina to expand access. That's been going back and forth right now. It looks like the North Carolina legislator is going to take care of that. Will the voter turnout be affected? Yes, it ultimately would have to be affected by such devastation. There's no doubt about it. What ultimately, are you going to be able to bring it back to a zero-sum game where it's going to be the same turnout as Election Day? No, I don't think that's realistic, but it looks like the Republican legislator in the North Carolina, which is Republican ran, they do have a Democratic governor, but everyone seems to be working together to get a vote turnout there, get everything set up for everyone to vote. I don't see that as affecting the election as of now. Harvesting from the war room, Steve Bannon, baby, you are almost out of jail. You're going to get out just in the nick of time. Harvesting America's first voters in Arizona. Gina Swoombody, I probably said that wrong, mission to mobilize Arizona voters. Now, Kari Lake is on the ballot. Kari Lake is a badass potential U.S. senator. If she wins that, Trump is going to have a massive ally in the U.S. Senate. She did lose last time around for governor of Arizona. But hey, it is what it is. Let's move on. Let's get her in the Senate and see if we can make that happen for her. Building momentum efforts are part of a larger movement to ensure a higher voter turnout in Arizona by focusing on early voting, offering transportation, encouraging voters to stay the course. She aims to foster an engaged electorate. Her work is vital for supporting candidates like Republican U.S. Senator Kari Lake, who aligns with her vision of Arizona's future. She had an amazing debate. The people know her there. I really do believe that she lost that election by the fact that there was pitfalls on election day with people walking away. Let's read this just real quick. Strategy prioritizing early voting to mitigate the risks associated with election day chaos. She recalls the difficulty voters face in Maricopa County, stating, "We can't have the people walking away." Her message is clear. The early voter can cast their ballot, the better the chance of a smooth voting experience. In addition to providing rides, she urged voters to remain steadfast if they encounter problems at the polling places. Stay in line, she advises, reminding them that every vote does count, especially in competitive races. Her encouragement is vital for maintaining voter morale and potential setbacks. And that is damn true. Every vote does count. Yes, when you look at hundreds of millions of people voting at the top end ticket, okay, but look down ballot. Some of these races are decided by a few hundred votes. And the closer that you get down the ballot, the more effect those people are going to have in your local community. So vote early, vote by mail if you can. Stay in line. It does matter. It really does matter. By the way, this is the chairwoman of the Arizona GOP, the Republican Party there. Now, also some things that are going in Donald Trump's favor is there is a rising tension between Harris and Biden and the election teams there. Now, if you recall, there was a coup d'etat by Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, and Kamala Harris just happened to be in the right place at the right time, like she has been for most of her political career. I will give her that. She is a hell of a positioner. She knows where to move on the chessboard. Couldn't really overstep her. What happens is, by the way, she had like a 90% turnover rate on her staff, which would just be hell to work for her. Now, she was not, I think she has started the latest run for presidency at any presidential candidate in history. Very tight time frame. So what does she have to do? She pretty much has to take over, or inherit rather, the Biden presidential team, which is good and bad because the infrastructure was already there. Bad thing is they don't like Kamala Harris. The Biden, since the beginning, she did call him a racist in the primary, where she got 0 delegates and had to be one of the first people to drop out, if we all do recall that. I have as many electoral delegates, presidential delegates, as Kamala Harris. So that's pretty badass. There's tension growing here, especially in light of this hurricane, because what it's showing, it's kind of it's very, both political sides are playing this game where Kamala Harris was deeply involved, and then she's saying she's not deeply involved, but she's also saying, pretty much if anything is good, she was deeply involved. Anything is bad or gray, she wasn't involved at all. She's just the vice president. What is she going to do? And the same goes for the other side. Well, we have this issue with this hurricane response, 2 hurricanes in a row, and she's trying to interject and get photo ops, right, of her doing things. She's walking, she's talking, has papers shuffling in front of her. Everyone knows she's not doing anything. That's not the point. By the way, even when she's not doing anything, she looks wildly uncomfortable. I mean, it is literally just a photo op, and she looks tired. She looks scared. She looks uncomfortable, which is odd because she's been speaking in front of thousands of people at rallies. There's no teleprompter, so maybe that makes her nervous. I'm not really sure. But nonetheless, she does not look good doing it. And all I've been seeing from her campaign is a bunch of reels of her walking in front of like trees that are blown over or something. Now, what's happening is you have Republican governors and statesmen saying that, oh, yes, the government's working great, especially Ron DeSantis saying that, Joe Biden's doing a great job. Earlier this week, Harris criticized Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, which, by the way, is like the best governor out of any governor in the United States of America. That guy is just constantly doing things right. He's kind of boring. He's like boring because he just does things right all the time. For not taking a call from her about the recent hurricanes, only for Biden to praise DeSantis soon after for being gracious and cooperative. A person familiar with the situation told Axios that Biden hadn't been briefed on the Harris comments. I don't like a person familiar with the situation. I really don't. But what are you going to do? So this is Ron DeSantis. And it's probably political, but also it's rightfully so. Like, dude, what are you going to do for me? I am trying to put this state back together and or at that time get it through this hurricane. And you have kind of cold shoulder to her and then cooperation and praise from Biden. And so it puts her team, Harris's team, in a really awkward position where it's not like Ron DeSantis is like shunning all help from anybody. No, just you, because you can't do anything for me. And that's pretty much that. Biden has been eager to boast about his robust job reports, helping to the end of the strike by the Longshoremen's Union and other perceived victories recently. Harris has been trying to focus on voters' pocketbooks concerns, including inflation. One person involved with the Harris campaign told Axios the White House is lacking someone in the room thinking first and foremost about how things would affect the campaign. So we had last week 2 kind of buffoon comments. She went on The View. They gave her a layup question, just an open-ended, very easy question. What's one thing that you would have done differently than what the Biden administration did? Kind of giving her that space. What the Biden administration had given her that space was, well, you weren't, I mean, you were there, but you weren't there, calling it a different name, and then saying, what would you have done differently? I mean, really great question. And then she goes, I can't think of anything differently. It's like, why would you say that? Why wouldn't you say something differently? I don't know. How about the pullout in Afghanistan? That would have been a good one to say. Maybe not doing so much on the Inflation Reduction Act or the Green New Deal as Joe Biden mumbled that he wished that's what it would have been called, because that's what it really was. There's so many things that could have been done differently that would have been super easy and wouldn't even have been an attack on Biden, which I think that's what she's worried about. But you could have easily had something ready. But I don't think she has anything ready. And she probably was briefed on a few things, but just couldn't pull it out at that moment. The other part was when Biden had said, oh, no, she's been in my pocket the entire time. We're reading from the same playbook or something to that effect, meaning all the problems that America has right now, she's been in on, which is something that she's trying to get away from, or trying to walk a line of, again, if it's good, I was there. If it's bad, no, I wasn't. It's all Biden's fault. One of the biggest issues that, no one's really pushed her on, but she's been lying to the American people this entire time about Joe Biden's health. I mean, Republicans have been pointing out for 2 years now, with the jokes, and it finally did become a joke, because like, hey, if you're not going to take our concern seriously about Joe Biden's health, we're just going to start making fun of him, which is not the greatest thing, to start just making fun of an old man that's, falling into a health situation. But at the same time, if you're just going to openly lie to us, we can see that the emperor has no clothes. We can see that as clear as day. And he was sharp as a tack, and he's great, and he's, in the decision room at 4 a.m. and all these different things. And it's like, no, he wasn't. And then you guys had to do a coup d'etat, and where he stepped down because he's having a mental health issue. And the next question, well, who's running the government? Who has been running the government? On the Harris campaign, there's also an awkwardness between some who were on the Biden's original campaign staff and the Harris allies who have been installed in recent weeks. In the weeks after Harris became the Democratic nominee, there's been squabbles about whether Biden's main surrogates on television would continue in their roles or if new faces would emerge. Two people familiar with the matter told Axios Harris' team prevailed and new surrogates began appearing frequently. Some on Harris's teams are worried that the Biden campaign crew are now working with. After all, Biden's team publicly argued that Harris was less electable than Biden in the weeks after the presidential disasters debate in June. So we had this debate in June, which Donald Trump should have never have taken. It only gave the Democratic Party a layup to actually get rid of Biden. Ultimately, they would have gotten rid of Biden. There's no doubt about it, but that would have put more of a squeeze on them, and they would have probably had to get rid of Biden maybe 3 or 4 weeks later. So it'd have been even tighter. But maybe, maybe this works out, because now this whole big sugar rush on Harris is kind of starting to dwindle and all these things. At the end of the day, we switched candidates to who would, according to the polls, be less likely to win than Joe Biden, the only person ever to defeat Donald Trump. Deputy campaign manager wrote in a letter to support after the debate. And I've seen many pollsters and commentators and say, look, when this is all said and done, the Democratic Party is going to wish they would have just simply held on to Joe Biden, just kept him in the basement, just like he won 2020. And maybe their losses wouldn't be so heavy. However, who's really to tell? We'll have to wait and see. We are quickly approaching that. And it is important that we do come up with someone strong on foreign policy. I don't believe in my heart of hearts, nonpartisan here, that Kamala Harris is the person to handle the issues that are affecting America, one, domestically, but two, overseas. We're going to be moving on to Israel. And this constant issue with Israel and how somehow Israel is our problem. It's like our little stepchild or our brother or sister that's always getting into trouble after they start fights or they get into fights. And it's constant with especially people in the military. And this is a very, very hard issue for people to speak about, because you get attacked very quickly as someone on the right. If I say anything negative about Israel, people go, oh, you don't support Israel. Well, it's not that I don't support Israel or their right to exist or Jewish people. So if you want to call me an anti-Semite, fine, whatever. I'm just speaking about the actual facts of the situation, that every time Israel gets into a beef, they get sent billions of dollars with no strings attached. We sell them all kinds of weapon systems. That's fine if they're buying weapon systems. I don't care if they're buying weapon systems. But when we're just giving them money and aid over and over and over, and then we also do this thing where people are starting around them, starting to bow up on them, right? And starting to kind of threaten them. The United States Navy, which happy birthday, United States Navy, by the way. I think it's the 247th birthday or something. The fleet has to turn their happy ass around with the aircraft carrier and the 14 small boys and all the support personnel, and then rather go port somewhere cool or go home, they have to sit off the coast of Israel to be kind of like the watchdog of the area. It's like a little lamb coming over to the pit bull and like, show me the bullies, show me who's messing with you, when Israel is completely capable of defending themselves. I mean, the politicians in the U.S., I mean, they're just completely bought and paid for by the Israel lobbyists. I mean, there was a clip of people were talking about disaster and with the hurricane and how are we going to help these people? How are we going to? Lindsey Graham was talking to Sean Hannity about how we're going to help people in Tennessee and in North Carolina, and South Carolina didn't get really hit, but he just immediately starts, but let's just stop and think about our friends over in Israel. They need more money. They need more bullets. They're getting attacked, blah, blah, blah. However his accent is, like kind of like gay Southern or something. But regardless, it's like, dude, we're talking about devastation in our own country. And all you can think about, all you can say is let's send more money to Israel. $750, I guess, is enough. Although everyone wants to say, well, that's not all they're going to get. No one said that's all they're going to get. I'm just saying that is one thing that they're getting is just $750. Yes, we understand there's other federal insurance. Yes, we understand that they're going to get FEMA support on this and that. That's not what Donald Trump said. That's not what Republicans are saying. And that overall is not where the outrage. Don't try to, well, check out all these other things that they're getting. People aren't saying in a definite amount, a finite amount. They're only getting $750. Well, in a paycheck of $750 that they have to apply for when you're, paying for hotel rooms and or just food and you have no job, and most people are living paycheck to paycheck, less than $400 in their bank account, $750 is not going to cut it, right? Most people have to kind of live till the end of the week to get that paycheck on a regular basis. Yet Lebanon gets millions of dollars. Israel gets billions of dollars. Egypt gets this. Saudi Arabia gets that. Ukraine gets all the money. And people in Western Tennessee just get the fucking scraps. Pentagon will send advanced missile defense system military personnel to Israel. About 6 months ago or something, they were going to put a dock or a pier, a floating pier, a barge connected to Gaza that was going to only be allowed to have aid come in and out of Gaza. Well, one, it kind of shows the lack of engineering that we have left in the United States military, and it's supporting government and civilian infrastructure, because the ship broke off and now it floated up the coast into Israel. Okay. So that's embarrassing. But they said, we're not going to have boots on the ground. And Matt Gaetz pushed the SecDef, I believe, on this comment and said, well, hold on. There's going to be military personnel manning this barge, right? Well, yes. Okay. So you're saying there's not going to be boots on the ground. And I believe Lloyd Austin said, well, I mean, they're going to be on the barge, but they're not going to be on the ground. I mean, these are semantics that are misleading the American people wildly. Like, well, no, they're not on the ground. They're just like on the barge that's connected to the ground. And to tell me that none of them are going to even step off, if you want to get granular and talk about, well, they're not on the ground, someone's going to step off that barge. Now you have boots on the ground if you want to go there. This right here is another implication. You're putting our military personnel into another active war zone. And what's going to happen, these are THAAD battery rams that are are going to be a huge target for terrorists to fire at. Our military personnel are going to be on those stations and living in and around them. And when they get attacked, there's going to be an outrage. We're going to see the next headline that's going to say U.S. military person attacked or killed by X. And then there will be, and they'll be like, oh, well, now they're attacking us and we need to do something about that. This is a story old as time. The Gulf of Tonkin. Well, we're just going to go in and out of their ports, even though they asked us not to. Now, that turned out to be complete BS, like most of these wars that we get lied into. And, people like Dick Cheney end up getting massive payoffs by starting companies that build infrastructures on these places that we bomb. And really, it's just me and you left holding the bag of the debt. And our servicemen and women who die or come back with physically or mentally injured that can never be healed from have to walk around for the rest of their lives like that. And that affects their family too. I'm totally against this. I believe this is not America first. If the Pentagon wants to sell these systems to Israel, I believe they should do so. If they want to get them manned, there's plenty of retired civilian and or reservist personnel who can get hired as civilians to go man these. I know I'm splitting hairs here with this, but I do not want uniformed military personnel manning these stations over in Israel. And I will fight. You can yell at me till you're red in the face about this. Israel is not America. They are not a great ally of America. I don't know what they do for us other than pay our government officials a fuck ton of money to vote how they want us to vote. On Saturday, we're among the first outlets to report the United States of America deploying THAAD anti-ballistic systems to Israel. This is from Zero Hedge, a major deployment which will put American troops directly in harm's way, or boots on the ground. The Pentagon followed up a statement in the New York Times confirming that the THAAD, Thermal High Altitude Area Defense System, will be sent to Israel and that about 100 American troops will operate them. Okay, this right here, let's reach back out in 6 months. Let's circle back. Let's circle back to this in about 6 months. 100 American troops will operate them. That is probably a true statement with 100 American troops operating them, but they're probably not going to mention the support staff there for them as well. They're going to start building a footprint. This means that at least 100 American soldiers will be placed in a position likely to be targeted by other potential barrages of ballistic missiles from Iran. At this moment, Israel is preparing its own counterattack in the wake of the October 1st strike. We're over a year now from that October offensive from Gaza. That was terrible. This retaliation does not equate in the minds of many other than Israel. And I believe Israel is just taking advantage of the situation of the weak foreign leadership, of the weak leadership that we have in the office that does not have a grasp on foreign relations right now. And people are just running amok. And Israel, and if I was in Israel's position, if I was Israeli in the government, I would do the same thing. This is a land grab on many different fronts. They're killing who they can kill right now. They're taking what they can take because they worry that, hey, come January 20th of next year, we might have to put all this on hold for another 4 years to figure out. Because right now we have Netanyahu's finance minister calling for Israel borders to extend all the way to Damascus. Okay, this is the problem. You have people in Netanyahu's cabinet, the finance minister, talking about we need to continue to expand all the way to Damascus. However, we're going to send a ballistic missile defense system. If you want to talk about defensive weapons, that's fine, but we're sending defensive weapons for a country that is clearly in offensive war. Each full missile battery and associated system costs American taxpayers about $800 to $1 billion. Okay? That is a wild amount of money. Israel needs to be paying for them in whole for every single one of them, and they need to be at a minimum picking up the salary for everyone that is stationed over there. And if I was in charge of this, they would be paying a fee on top of that. All the service members there would be getting a cut of that or at least their extra pays, right? At least they'd be getting extra pays on top of their salary, and it wouldn't cost the American taxpayer anything. They'd be paying in whole. And every time that fleet has to turn their happy ass around and sit off the fleet, off their coast, they're going to be paying for that too. If you don't want it, fine. That's great. The fleet rather go park in Italy for a port call or come on home back to Virginia to hang out with their family for a couple weeks before they have to do some bullshit workup before their next 6-month, 8-month deployment. And everyone wonders why retention's so fucking low. All this follows the Pentagon having weeks ago deployed thousands of U.S. troops to the border region aimed at escalations in Lebanon. Some of those forces were sent to Cyprus and others likely to Gulf countries or possibly Jordan. Hey, you want to go to Jordan? You want to go to Jordan? No, motherfucker. I do not want to go to Jordan. Fuck Jordan. The Pentagon has tried to deflect from language which portrays the obvious that without congressional authorization, American troops are entering into an escalated overseas war zone to defend a foreign country. That is so obvious. Yes, you need a declaration of war to send U.S. troops into a foreign war zone. When asked on Sunday, Mr. Biden only said that he had ordered the Pentagon to deploy the systems to defend Israel. General Ryder said that in his statement that the battery would augment Israel's integrated air defense system. It was not immediately clear how quickly the missile defense system or troops announced on Sunday would arrive in Israel. This action underscores the United States' ironclad commitment to the defense of Israel and to defend Americans in Israel from any other ballistic missile attacks by Iran. And the statement said it is part of the broader adjustment the U.S. military has made in recent months to support the defense of Israel and to protect Americans from attacks by Iran and Iran-aligned militias. Dude, what the fuck are they talking about? We have dual citizens or Americans that are Jewish that are living in Israel, and they're using this as an excuse, right? Or a casus belli, if you will, or leading to a casus belli to station these wildly expensive and impressive weapon system and deploying more troops over there. You're saying we're going to defend the citizens, our American citizens that are living over there with more American citizens. How about give them a choice? Get the fuck out of Israel. We'll send a plane to come get you, or you're on your own, buddy. What is this about? This is a play. That's what it is. That's what it's about. So interestingly, this is the new talking points of national security state. Americans are being deployed to defend Americans who happen still to be in Israel. I didn't even read this before I started talking about this, by the way. Certainly marks a new and interesting rationale. I didn't even read this, and it's just like, it's just coming to me. I mean, it's just everything is just written right there on the wall, but the lobbyists are just so powerful. And again, I'm all for selling this missile system to them. If they want to do that, if they want to sell the missile system, we want to sell them all the weapons. Great, let's do it. Sell them all the weapons. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin on Saturday had actually issued some soft criticism of Israel after 2 UN peacekeeper troops in South Lebanon were wounded by Israeli fire. Whatever, dude. Like nothing. So I already talked about this. The finance minister calls for the borders to extend into Damascus. This pretty much is a play of just a constant expansion of Israel. Now, look, if that's Israel's prerogative and everyone else around Israel hates them, and if they want to keep battling out, that I don't care. I don't care if you guys want to keep fighting, if Israel wants to keep pushing, if Hamas wants to keep attacking. There's really no good answer to any of this. And because of that, there's no end game in mind. How about we just stay out of it? How about we have so many problems here that we really need to look in the mirror and do some internal reflection and some internal growing. Now, guys, politicians aren't going to solve all your problems, right? Donald Trump gets elected. That's not going to solve all your problems. But it could help. It could help if Donald Trump gets elected. What did we see? We saw no new wars in the 4 years that he was in charge. Russia didn't make any moves on Ukraine. NATO also didn't make any moves on Ukraine. NATO actually got strengthened under Donald Trump because he showed up and said, no, you're going to pay your bills, and stop saying that you're buying solar panels for warehouses and trying to write that up as some kind of military expense. Okay, you're going to pay your portion of GDP. Israel wasn't doing this counterattack for a year. Hamas really wasn't making too many moves. Everyone was kind of at a standstill. Everyone really didn't know where to go. No one really knew what to do with this guy, which is kind of cool, right? That's kind of cool. No one knew what to really do with this guy, which way to go. He's kind of crazy. What is he going to do to us? How is he going to react if we do this? He's kind of, you don't know what to do with the guy, and it makes you kind of hold your cards a little bit closer. Maybe you just bite your time. And that's great, because we really do need some more time to bite. Okay. We need to buy it. We need to use it. We need to restructure. We need to fix our economy. We need to do a number of things internally. Our military, our Navy, our infrastructure all needs to continue to be fixed and upgraded for potential threats. And I just don't think that, if apples to apples, we've had 4 years of one administration, we've had 4 years of another administration. I think in November, the American people are going to come out and show up for Donald Trump, and that's all we can hope for. Please make sure you're registered to vote. It's passed in many states, but there still are some states where you can register. And if you're going to vote, vote early. If you can, vote by mail. Just get it in there. Do not wait to the day of election, and volunteer to work on election day. Do something on election day. Okay, take the day off if you can. I know things are tight, but it's a big help, and it shows up for the Republican Party that, hey, we're manning all our booths. Hey, we have election judges, we have clerks, we have this, we have that. That adds a massive amount of integrity into the election system, because Donald Trump could lose. Legitimately, it could be a legitimate loss. And if we do all the right steps, there's not going to be a massive wave of people if it's all legitimate, if the ballots are, chain of custody, if they're certifiable, everything's legit. Yes, you have the right to legally contest a election. And if all those things happen and it was a legit loss, then great. But you have to add in the integrity into the election system, and doing that, to do that, you have to be there. So guys, please show up, please vote, please volunteer. We got less than a month left. This is the final home stretch. And again, you are not just about this election, but you are building infrastructure for elections to come. It's been an great talk with y'all. Please like and subscribe, comment below, follow me on X, and I look forward to talking with y'all again soon. Thanks.